The Queen's Birthday Honours 1963 were appointments in many of the Commonwealth realms of Queen Elizabeth II to various orders and honours to reward and highlight good works by citizens of those countries. The appointments were made on the occasion of the celebration of Her Majesty's birthday, and were published in supplements to the London Gazette of 31 May 1963. At this time, honours for Australians were awarded both in the United Kingdom honours on the advice of the premiers of Australian states, and also in a separate Australia honours list. Recipients of honours are listed here as they were styled before the new honour. United Kingdom: Baron the Right Honourable Charles Hill, MD, MP, Member of Parliament for Luton since 1950. Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of Food, 1951 to 1955. Postmaster General, 1955 to 1957. Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, 1957 to 1961. Minister of Housing and Local Government and Minister for Welsh Affairs. 1961 1962. For Political and Public Services: Brigadier Sir Alec Drummond Buchanan Smith, C.B.E.T.D., J.P.D.L., Deputy Chairman of the Unionist Party in Scotland, 1960 to 1963. For Political and Public Services in Scotland. Privy Councillor Joseph Bradshaw Godber, ESQ, MP, Member of Parliament for Grantham since 1951. Assistant Government Whip, 1955 to 1957. Joint Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, 1957 to 1960. Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, 1961. Minister of State for Foreign Affairs since 1961. Sir John Gardner Sumner Hobson, O.B.E.T.D., QC, MP, Member of Parliament for Warwick and Leamington since 1957. Solicitor General 1962, Attorney General since 1962. The Right Honourable Oliver Bryan Sanderson, Baron Poole, C.B.E.T.D., Member of Parliament for Oswestry, 1945 to 1950. Joint Honorary Treasurer of the Conservative Party Organisation, 1952 to 1955, Chairman, 1955 to 1957, Deputy Chairman, 1957 to 1959, Joint Chairman since April 1963. Baronet Sir Eric Errington, MP, Member of Parliament for Bootle, 1935 to 1945, and for Aldershot since 1954. For Political and Public Services: Charles Ian or Ewing, ESQ, O.B.E. MP, Member of Parliament for Hendon North since 1950. Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Air 1957 to 1959, Parliamentary and Financial Secretary, Admiralty, 1959, Civil Lord of the Admiralty, 1959 to 1963. For Political and Public Services: Knight Bachelor Arthur Capel Herbert Bell, ESQ, M.B.F., RCS, President Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Dennis William Brogan, ESQ, Professor of Political Science, University of Cambridge. Alderman Kenneth Alfred Leader Brown, J.P. For Political and Public Services in Bristol: John Bruce, ESQ, C.B.E.T.D., F. RCS, Regius Professor of Clinical Surgery, University of Edinburgh. Professor William Mansfield Cooper, Vice-Chancellor, University of Manchester. Andrew James Maitland MacGill Crichton, ESQ, Chairman, Employers Side, National Joint Council for the Port Transport Industry. Chairman, National Association of Port Employers. John Nuttall Maxwell Entwistle, ESQ, Alderman, Liverpool City Council. John Nicholson Hogg, ESQ.TD, Chairman, Export Guarantees Advisory Council. Ronald Holroyd, ESQ, Deputy Chairman, Imperial Chemical Industries Limited. Colonel John Frederick Crompton Inglefield, TD, DL, for Political and Public Services in Derbyshire. Richard Leo Frick Jackson, ESQ, CBE, Assistant Commissioner, Metropolitan Police. President, International Criminal Police Organization. Professor Hewitt Ray Herbert Jones, Waynflete Professor of Chemistry, University of Oxford. Norman Samuel Joseph, ESQ, CBE. Director, Joseph Lyons and Company Limited. Honorary Catering Advisor to the Home Office. Geoffrey Kitchen, ESQ, TD, Chairman, Pearl Assurance Company Limited. Henry Brailsford Lawson, ESQ, MC, President of the Law Society. Alan Lubbock, ESQ, Chairman, Hampshire County Council. Robert Edwin McAlpine, ESQ, Director, Sir Robert McAlpine and Sons Limited. Captain John MacLeod, TD, MP, Member of Parliament for Ross and Cromarty since 1945. For Political and Public Services. Douglas Marshall, ESQ, MP, Member of Parliament for Bodmin since 1945. For Political and Public Services. William John Herbert DeWitt Mullins, ESQ, D, SOTD, lately Senior Government Broker. Kenneth Swift Peacock, ESQ, Chairman and Managing Director. Guest, Keenan Nettlefolds Limited. Michael Edward Rowe, ESQ, CBEQC, Deputy Chairman, Local Government Commission for England. Harold Samuel, ESQ, for Public and Charitable Services. Alexander Samuels, ESQ, CBE, Honorary Advisor to the Minister of Transport on London Traffic Management. Norman Sanger Tucker, ESQ, OBE, General Secretary, National Council of the Young Men's Christian Association. Percy Frederick Ronald Venables, ESQ, Principal, Birmingham College of Advanced Technology. Alderman Martin Kelso Wallace, JP, Lord Mayor of Belfast. Norman Charles Wright, ESQ, CB, for past services as Chief Scientific Advisor, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. Miles Dermot Norris Wyatt, ESQ, CBE, Chairman and Managing Director, British United Airways Limited. State of Victoria. The Reverend Clarence Irving Benson, CBE, Superintendent of the Wesley Church Central Mission, Melbourne, State of Victoria. Colin York Syme, ESQ, President of the Walter and Eliza Institute of Research, Royal Melbourne Hospital, State of Victoria. State of Queensland. Oswald Ellis Joseph Murphy, ESQ, CHMF, RCP, of Brisbane, State of Queensland, for services in the field of medicine. State of South Australia. Ivan Bede Jose, ESQ, MCMBF, RCS, a consultant surgeon, Royal Adelaide Hospital, State of South Australia. Ewan McIntyre Waterman, ESQ, of Strathalbyn, State of South Australia, for services to the pastoral industry. State of Western Australia. Joseph Francis Ledger, ESQ, for services to industrial development in the state of Western Australia. Commonwealth Relations. Hugh McItalic, ESQ, President of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry and of the Associated Chambers of Commerce of India. Overseas Territories. Joshua Abraham Hassan, ESQ, CBEM, VOQC, JP, for Public Services in Gibraltar. Francis Challoner Hudson, ESQ, CBE, for Public Services in Barbados. Peter Watkin Williams, ESQ, Chief Justice of the High Commission Territories of Basutoland, Bechuanaland Protectorate and Swaziland. Campbell Wiley, ESQ, QCE.D, Chief Justice of the Joint Court of Sarawak, North Borneo and Brunei. Order of the Bath. Knight Grand Cross of the Order of the Bath Admiral Sir John David Luce, K.C.B.D. S.O.O. B.E. Sir Harold Simcox Kent, K.C.B.H.M. Procurator General and Treasury Solicitor. Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath Lieutenant General Malcolm Cartwright Taylor, C.B. Vice Admiral Michael Lafanus, C.B.D. S.C. Lieutenant General Kenneth Thomas Darling, C.B.C.B.E.D. S.O. Late Infantry. Acting Air Marshal Thomas Norman Costlet, C.B.O. B.E. Royal Air Force. Acting Air Marshal Christopher Harold Hartley, C.B.C.B.E.D. F.C.A. F.C. Royal Air Force. William Armstrong, ESQ, C.B.M. V.O. Joint Permanent Secretary to H.M. Treasury. Companion of the Order of the Bath Military Division Rear Admiral Frederick Dosser, C.B.E. Rear Admiral Philip David Gick, O.B.E.D. S.C. Rear Admiral Maurice Gordon Grieg, D.S.C. Major General Robert Dye Houghton, O.B.E.M. C. Rear Admiral Horace Rochford Law, O.B.E.D. S.C. Rear Admiral Hugh Colenso Martel, C.B.E. Rear Admiral Richard Arthur James Owen. Rear Admiral Errol Norman Sinclair, D.S.C. Surgeon Rear Admiral Philip Stanley Turner, Q.H.D.S.L. D.S. Major General Richard George Fellows Frisbee, C.B.E.D. S.O.M.C. Late Infantry. Major General Courtney Trace David Lindsay, late Royal Regiment of Artillery. Major General John Edward Longworth Morris, C.B.E.D. S.O. late Royal Regiment of Artillery. Major General William Odling, O.B.E.M.C. late Royal Regiment of Artillery. Major General David Peel Yates, D.S.O. O.B.E. late Infantry. Colonel, the South Wales Borderers. Major General Francis James Claude Piggott, C.B.E.D. S.O. late Infantry. Major General Alwyn Michael Webster Whistler, C.B.E. late Royal Corps of Signals. Major General John Francis Worsley, O.B.E.M.C. late Infantry. Air Vice Marshal William Edward Coles, C.B.E.D. S.O.D. F.C.A. F.C. Royal Air Force. Air Vice Marshal Stuart William Blackman-All, C.B.E.D. F.C.A. F.C. Royal Air Force. Air Vice Marshal John Brown Wallace, O.B.E.Q. H.S.M.D. C.H.B. Royal Air Force. Air Commodore George Francis Wheaton Haycock, D.F.C. Royal Air Force. Air Commodore Ralph Coburn Jackson, M. RCSF, RCP, Royal Air Force. Air Commodore James Maitland Nicholson Pike, D.S.O. D.F.C. Royal Air Force. Air Commodore John Clifford Pope, C.B.E. Royal Air Force. Air Commodore Ian James Spencer, D.F.C. Royal Air Force. Civil Division Douglas Albert Vivian Allen, ESQ, 3rd Secretary, H.M. Treasury. Edgar Warren Chivers, ESQ, Director, Royal Armament Research and Development Establishment, War Office. Major Erlim Stanley Dobb, Director, Agricultural Land Service, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. Harry Hill Dolly, ESQ, Deputy Secretary, Scottish Education Department. William Gordon Harris, ESQ, Director General of Works, Ministry of Public Building and Works. David Charles Beresford Holden, ESQ, E.R.D., Second Secretary, Ministry of Finance for Northern Ireland. Stanley Marks Curzon, ESQ, Parliamentary Council. David William Shuckborough Lidderdale, ESQ, Clerk Assistant, House of Commons. Bertram Mitchell, ESQ, Chief Inspector, Board of Customs and Excise. Louis Frederick Nicholson, ESQ, Director General of Scientific Research, Ministry of Aviation. Arthur William Peterson, ESQ, M.V.O., Assistant Under Secretary of State, Home Office. Edward Alexander Keane Ridley, ESQ, Principal Assistant Solicitor, Office of H.M. Procurator General and Treasury Solicitor. Daniel Thompson, ESQ, MD, Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Ministry of Health. Albert Edward Tollerfield, ESQ, Assistant Controller, Patent Office, Board of Trade. Order of St. Michael and St. George, Knight Grand Cross of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. Sir Patrick Henry Dean, K.C.M.G., Permanent United Kingdom Representative to the United Nations, New York. Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. David Wathenstather Hunt, ESQ, C.M.G. O.B.E., British High Commissioner in Uganda. Charles Michael Walker, ESQ, C.M.G., British High Commissioner in Ceylon. Colin Tredescant Crowe, ESQ, C.M.G., Her Majesty's Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary in Jeddah. Robert David John Scott Fox, ESQ, C.M.G., Her Majesty's Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary in Santiago. Ivor Thomas Montague Pink, ESQ, C.M.G., Her Majesty's Envoy Extraordinary and Minister Plenipotentiary in Budapest. Alan Meredith Williams, ESQ, C.M.G., Her Majesty's Consul General, New York. Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. Eric Coombe Maynard Cullingford, ESQ, Labour Attaché, British Embassy, Bonn. James Littlewood, ESQ, lately Chairman, Empire Cotton Growing Corporation. John Barraclough Floynes, ESQ, an advisor, Bank of England. Eric Lawrence Phillips, ESQ, Assistant Secretary, Board of Trade. John Haddo Riddoch, ESQ, Under Secretary, Ministry of Aviation. Sidney Herbert Shaw, ESQ, O.B.E., Geological Advisor and Director of Overseas Geological Surveys. William Allen McInnes Green, ESQ, Town Clerk of the City of Perth, State of Western Australia. John Charles Hooton, ESQ, M.B.E., Legal Secretary, East African Common Services Organisation. Norman Jameson, ESQ, of Indooroopilly, State of Queensland, for Services to Industry. Robin Leslie Darlow Jasper, ESQ, Deputy British High Commissioner, Abadan. Frederick Austin Johnston, ESQ, C.B.E., Chairman of the Finance Committee for the 7th British Commonwealth Games, Perth, State of Western Australia. William Gordon Matheson, ESQ, Under Secretary and Controller of Accounts, Treasury, State of New South Wales. Eric George Norris, ESQ, Deputy British High Commissioner, Calcutta. Aldhelm St John Sugg, ESQ, Provincial Commissioner, Southern Province, Northern Rhodesia. Kenneth Martin Cowley, ESQ, O.B.E., Provincial Commissioner, South Province, Kenya. John Cartwright Braddon Fisher, ESQ, O.B.E., Administrative Officer, Class 1 at Sarawak. Anthony McGregor Graha, ESQ, Under Secretary, North Borneo. Harold Percival Hall, ESQ, M.B.E., Assistant Secretary, Colonial Office. Henry Wild Edwards Heath, ESQ, Commissioner of Police, Hong Kong. Jeffrey Charles Lawrence, ESQ, O.B.E., Financial Secretary, Zanzibar. Archibald Cameron Reid, ESQ, Secretary for Fijian Affairs, Fiji. Anthony Redfern Rushford, ESQ, Assistant Legal Advisor to the Secretary of State for the Colonies. Ivor Otterbein Smith, ESQ, O.B.E., Chairman of the Public Service Commission and of the Police Service Commission, British Guiana. John Lawrence Harvey Webster, ESQ, Permanent Secretary, Kenya. John Arnold Harrop Wolff, ESQ, Provincial Commissioner, Rift Valley Province, Kenya. Harold Arthur Neville Brown, ESQ, C.V.O., lately Her Majesty's Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary in Monrovia. Derek Sherborne Linsell Dodson, ESQ, M.C., lately Her Majesty's Consul, Elizabethville. Robert Heath Mason, ESQ, O.B.E., Foreign Office. William Morris, ESQ, lately Councillor, Her Majesty's Embassy, Amman. Ivor Forsyth Porter, ESQ, O.B.E., Permanent United Kingdom Representative to the Council of Europe, Strasbourg. John Lawrence Pumphrey, ESQ, Councillor, Office of the United Kingdom Commissioner General for Southeast Asia, Singapore. Francis Brooks Richards, ESQ, D.Sc. and Bar Councillor, Her Majesty's Embassy, Paris. Oliver Charles Beecham St. John, ESQ, Foreign Office. Harold Taplan Shergill, ESQ, O.B.E., Foreign Office. Arnold Robert Walmsley, ESQ, M.B.E., lately Foreign Office. Royal Victorian Order Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order Vice Admiral Geoffrey Norman, C.B.C.B.E. Commander of the Royal Victorian Order James Arthur Banks, ESQ, O.B.E. Brigadier the Right Honourable James Roderick, the Earl of Caithness, C.B.E.D. S.O. Miss Gwyneth Margaret Lloyd, M.V.O. Major the Right Honourable Patrick Terence William Spann, Baron Plunkett, M.V.O. Irish Guards. Member of the Royal Victorian Order. At this time the two lowest classes of the Royal Victorian Order were Member and Member, both with post-nominal letters MVO. Member was renamed Lieutenant from the 1985 New Year Honours onwards. Fourth class the Reverend Patrick Thomas Ashton, David Vincent Griffiths Buchanan, ESQ, M.V.O. Stephen Langton Forward, ESQ. Edmund Frank Grove, ESQ, M.V.O. Captain David Gordon Room, Royal Navy. The Reverend Edwin Ward, 5th Class Arthur George Horsley, ESQ. Miss Muriel Legg, Regimental Sergeant Major John Clifford Lord, M.B.E. Grenadier Guards. Donald Morrison, ESQ. Order of the British Empire, Knight Grand Cross of the Order of the British Empire General Sir Harold English Byman, K.C.B.C.B.E.D. S.O. Colonel Commandant, Royal Armoured Corps, Royal Tank Regiment Wing, Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire Commandant Jean Davies, O.B.E. Hon. ADC, Director, Women's Royal Naval Service. Air Commandant Jean-Lena Annette Conant Oil, O.B.E. Women's Royal Air Force. Miss Honour Bridget Fell, Director, Strangeways Research Laboratory, Cambridge. Madam Alicia Markova, C.B.E. For services to ballet. Miss Barbara Salt, C.B.E. lately Minister, United Kingdom Mission to the United Nations, New York. Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire Major General Hamish Manus Campbell, C.B.C.B.E. Royal Army Pay Corps. Lieutenant General Richard Walter Craddock, C.B.C.B.E.D. S.O. Late Infantry. William Travan Aitken, ESQ, MP, Member of Parliament for Bury St Edmunds since 1950. For political and public services, Matthew Campbell, ESQ, CB, Secretary, Department of Agriculture and Fisheries for Scotland. Ronald Stanley Edwards, ESQ, Chairman, the Electricity Council. Albert Henry Mumford, ESQ, O.B.E. Engineer-in-Chief, General Post Office. George Edgar Vaughan, ESQ, C.B.E. Her Majesty's Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary in Panama City. Sir Percival Joseph Griffiths, C.I.E. President of the India, Pakistan and Burma Association. For services to the British communities in India and Pakistan. Sir Henry Rudolph Howard, Chairman of the Organising Council for the 7th British Commonwealth Games, Perth, State of Western Australia. Sir Ronald Ormiston Sinclair, President, East African Court of Appeal. Brian Allen Marwood, ESQ, C, MG, C, BE, Resident Commissioner, Swaziland, New Zealand. Knight Bachelor Gilbert Edward Archie CBE, Director of the Auckland Institute and Museum. Order of St. Michael and St. George, Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George Arthur Egbert Davenport, lately General Manager of the New Zealand Electricity Department. William Percy Goland MD FRCS, of Nelson, Professor Emeritus of Anatomy, University of Otago. Order of the British Empire. Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire Civil Division John Andrew CBE, of Hyde, Central Otago. For public services. Commander of the Order of the British Empire Civil Division Herbert Mayo Castleberg, of Wellington. For services to land settlement and agriculture. James Deans JP, of Canterbury. For services to local government, agriculture and forestry. Alexander McGregor Grant MB FRACS, of Auckland. For services to medicine and racing. Jack Newman JP, of Nelson. For services to tourism in New Zealand. Military Division Air Commodore William Hector Stratton DFC, Royal New Zealand Air Force. Officer of the Order of the British Empire Civil Division Leonard Frederick de Berry, of Christchurch. For services to music and education. Alex Sugden Farrer. For services to the community, especially as President of the Christchurch Returned Services Association. Harold Robert Holt, President of the Hawke's Bay and East Coast Arts Society. Colin Robert Horsley, concert pianist. For services to music. Leonard James Tobin Ireland JP, of Dunedin. For services to local body administration. Hermana Mahuika, of Tiki Tiki, East Coast. For services to the Maori people. Leon Mailmost, Chairman of the New Plymouth High School Board. Leslie Walter Stewart, formerly Rector of St Andrews College, Christchurch. John Tate, of Invercargill. For services to local government and the Returned Services Association. Mrs. Eleanor Catherine Watson, Dominion President of the Women's Division of the Federated Farmers. Military Division Surgeon Commander Alexander Colin Horn BDS LDS, Royal New Zealand Navy. Lieutenant Colonel John Wallace Bateman Ed 1st Divisional Signals Regiment. Group Captain Arthur Percy Gainsford DSODFC Royal New Zealand Air Force. Member of the Order of the British Empire Civil Division Mrs. Prudence Lillian Burrows Blunden, of Waikari. For social welfare services. Edward James Bradshaw JP, a former Mayor of Riccarton. Mrs. Nora Kathleen Braithwaite, of Hamilton. For services to the community. Gordon Leonard Brown, of Auckland. For services with the St. John Ambulance Movement. William Alexander Gault, of Opotiki. For services to local government. Wilfred Douglas Gorman, of Wellington. For services to the community, especially in connection with the Amateur Radio Emergency Corps. Miss Jessie Jackson, a librarian at Her Majesty's New Zealand Dockyard in Auckland. Mrs. Mavis Gwendolyn Keeley, of Auckland. For services to local government and social welfare. Alfred Sidney Kinsman, of Timaru. For services to local government. Robert McCallum, Major, Salvation Army, Rotorua Island, Auckland. Archibald Aloysius MacDonald, of Ashburton. For services to local government. Mrs. Mary Ellen Reid, of Greymouth. For social welfare services, especially in connection with women and children. Wilfred Aaron Rushton JP, Mayor of Morrinsville. Miss Gladys Sansandford, matron of the Lower Hutt Maternity Annex. Willis Allen Scaife JP of Wanaka, for services to farming. Harold Reginald Street of Taumarunui, for services to local government. Herbert Lee Towers of Auckland, for services to athletics, especially in connection with the New Zealand Olympic and British Empire Games Association. Ronald Philip Wakelin Ed JP, Mayor of Carterton. Miss Gwendolyn Edna Borry Wilson, matron of Ashburn Hall, Dunedin. Military Division Lieutenant Commander Peter Maxwell Sanders, Royal New Zealand Naval Volunteer Reserve. Major Frederick Arthur Gunn Ed, the New Zealand Regiment. Warrant Officer Class 2 Ronald Ivan Keat, the New Zealand Regiment. Honorary Captain Frederick Barry Smith Ed, the Royal Regiment of New Zealand Artillery. Major Richard Stanley Harris, the New Zealand Regiment. Squadron Officer Joyce Eileen Peat, Women's Royal New Zealand Air Force. Warrant Officer Herbert Edwards, Royal New Zealand Air Force. Companion of the Imperial Service Order Charles Edward Peake, Superintendent, Child Welfare Division, Department of Education. Charles William Oakey Turner, lately Engineer-in-Chief, Public Works Department. British Empire Medal for Gallantry, Civil Division Raymond Piper, Ambulance Driver, Auckland, for courage at the time of the shooting tragedy in the Auckland District. Joseph Walker, Constable, New Zealand Police, Auckland, for courage at the time of the shooting tragedy in the Auckland District. Civil Division Edward Fitzgerald Barry, Constable, New Zealand Police, Auckland. Military Division Shipwright Artificer First Class Oliver Maxwell Cox, Royal New Zealand Navy. Chief Radio Electrical Artificer Cyril Neil Jeffreys, Royal New Zealand Navy. Chief Petty Officer Gordon Thomas Lawrence, Royal New Zealand Navy. Chief Radio Electrician Kenneth Robinson, Royal New Zealand Navy. Staff Sergeant Clifford Melrose Kennedy, the New Zealand Regiment. Staff Sergeant Gavin Stanley Milne, Royal New Zealand Engineers. Warrant Officer Class 2 John O'Brien, Royal New Zealand Signals. Sergeant Geoffrey Millard Castle, Royal New Zealand Air Force. Sergeant Edward Sims, Royal New Zealand Air Force. Air Force Cross Squadron Leader Donald Benjamin Pollard, Royal New Zealand Air Force. Flight Lieutenant Arthur David Malcolm Winkleman, Royal New Zealand Air Force. Queen's Police Medal for Distinguished Service Charles Edward Tanner, Chief Inspector, New Zealand Police. Queen's Commendation for Valuable Service in the Air Flight Lieutenant Frederick Barry Flavel, Royal New Zealand Air Force.